Hi everyone and welcome to another video here on the Pennies and Shillings channel. In this video I will be digging into an old box of coins that belonged to my mother-in-law's dad. She graciously gave me the collection. Maybe you have one of these coins as well and you can get an idea of what they are worth. Or maybe you're just curious like me. Whatever the case, thank you for watching. Before I continue, I would like to quickly address one specific issue. I get a lot of requests from people that want to sell me their coins or inquire on how and where to sell their coins. I can really not entertain all these questions, but I'll keep trying. I've made 2 videos on that very topic, which explains in detail the whole selling process and how you should go about. Please have a look. You'll be selling your coins in no time. Just please remember to never pay any kind of fee to sell your coins. That's always a scam. Don't fall for that. So click on the link over here if you just want to know how to sell your coins. Okay, back to the box of coins. Now, collections such as these are very interesting. They often do not contain high value coins, but the history and the stories behind them can be very interesting. I mean, look at just how interesting this box is that these coins are being stored in. I guess the original owner really enjoyed his fishing. I could not find out much about this particular reel, so if you know anything about it, let us know in the comments. Okay, so let's have a look. Now, apart from the numismatic treasure, I also saw a newspaper clipping as part of this collection. It's dated 13 March 1966 and it talks about the value of quarter pennies. It mentions the 1930, which is worth 6 rand. Today, a graded specimen 1930 quarter penny in MS would sell upwards of 15,000 rand. Now that is a good investment. Also, there's a piece of paper here that lists the actual inventory. Now, the moment you see a catalogue, you know that you are dealing with a collector. So I wonder when this was written down. Many moons ago, I'm sure. The old 2 rand note. Boy, does this bring back memories. This was very decent money for a kid like me back in the 80s. You could easily fill your pockets with all kinds of candy with one of these and you'd still have change left. By the way, do you know who this is? Well, it's not Jan van Riebeeck if that was your guess. The portrait here is actually of another Dutchman, presumably a Bartholomeus Vermuyden. But that's a topic for another video. Now, just like with coins, the quality of a note is very important to determine its value. A note that has become limp, contains folds or tears, or even pinholes, loses almost all of its collector's value. Now, from the signature of the 6th governor of South Africa, the South African Reserve Bank, namely Gerard de Kock, as well as the serial numbers, we can tell that both these notes were printed in 1984. Just over 1 billion were printed in this year. And in this condition, it's actually worth not much more than 2 rand. This one is in a slightly better condition, so possibly 5 rand from a collector. Now, Christian Stals was the 7th governor of the South African Reserve Bank, and these 5 rand notes were printed during his tenure in 1990. Now, this 5 rand is only worth face value, really. And this slightly better note, maybe possibly 10 rand on a good day. These notes are not really scarce, as over 600 million were printed in 1990. Believe it or not, but you can actually take these notes to a bank and exchange them for current currency. Unlike many other places in the world, all South African money have never been formally demonetized. Now, personally, I'll just keep this. Okay, so here we have 2 really well-used Zimbabwean notes. I don't know much about Zimbabwean or Rhodesian currency, but I suspect these 2 notes are pretty worthless. Interestingly though, A date and the word Harare, which I presume is the printing date and place, can be found on the notes. 1994 for the $10 and 1997 for the $5. I don't know why other countries don't do this, but it sure makes a collector's life much easier. Now, next we have this very interesting 1 lira note. I had to do some research on this little note as I've never seen one before. Now, these notes were printed during the World War II occupation of Libya between 1943 and 1951 in the province of Tripolitania. Now, an Ankh specimen sold for 4,445 Rand in 2023, while an about uncirculated note sold for 1,391 Rand in the same year. Now, in this condition, however, I suspect it will sell for at most 150 Rand on a good day. Still a very interesting find. Now, back on home soil, we have this very old and very large old 20 Rand note. I cannot help but wonder how you would carry one of these things around. I think that probably you didn't. This was a lot of money back in 1962 when this note was printed. The note is signed by Gerard Rissik, the 4th governor of the South African Reserve Bank, and this was the only issue of this particular note. Only 750,000 of these notes were printed, and in uncirculated condition, this note will easily fetch several thousand Rand. But in this poor condition, maybe 100 Rand, if I'm lucky. And that's the notes. Let's see what coins are in this box. So, in the first bag, we have 24 farthings or quarter pennies from the King George VI to the Queen Elizabeth II era. Now, the condition of the coins ranges from extra fine to about uncirculated, and I'd value them at around 1 Rand each. Now, there's one 1942 that I'd like to show you that stands out. Let me just rearrange the coins a bit. There it is. Now, just look how black that coin is in comparison with the others. Now, this was done deliberately using a process, or at the mint, using a process that involves sodium trisulfate. Now, this was done so that the newly minted red copper coins were not accidentally mistaken for gold sovereigns. So remember, if you do get a red farthing prior to 1943, it's definitely worth a bit more. Then there is a well-worn 1942 penny and 1944 halfpenny that I saw. Now, these are very common, and I often get queries on these. In Ankh condition, uncirculated, these coins are getting really difficult to find, but in this condition, they're actually quite common. So, possibly 2 Rand each. Okay, then finally we have these 18 well-worn 3 pinces or tikkies from the King George V to the Queen Elizabeth II era. Now, unfortunately, there's no 1925 in here or 1931. Not that I expect to find a 1931, but every collector looks. You know you're not going to find one, but you still look. Okay. Now, in this condition, well worn, the coins are only really worth bullion value. But of course, they contain silver. So 1951 and onwards, that's 50% silver. So with the current silver price, that is 14 Rand for a little coin like that. And before 1951, you're looking at 21 Rand each. So let's just take an average and say 15 Rand for each. So that's 270 Rand for this handful of worn coins. Now, these are the only first decimal coins in the collection. 3 common 1961 1-cent coins. Now, you may be wondering about the color of these coins. What gives them this yellowish color when compared to other bronze coins? Well, it all comes down to the bronze being used. These coins only contain 75% copper, while the bronze coins from the ZIR, the Union and the second decimal contains closer to 95% copper. The rest is made up of mostly zinc, a silvery white metal. Now that ratio is what gives this first decimal bronze coins their distinctive yellowish color. Now in terms of value, the full ground variety is the only one to look out for. These, however, are extremely common. So common, in fact, that they are often given away for free at coin shows. So let's say R1 for the lot. Now the next bag contains quite a bit of nickel and of course also the bronze. So let's have a look at those. We'll start with some half-cent coins that I found. Now, when you see these particular half-cent coins, chances are that they're going to be 1970s. When the second decimal was phased in 1965, the half cent was initially discontinued. So there's no half cents from 1965 to 1969. Now there was a national outcry as many products still cost, something and a half. Now the mint finally gave in and minted the first second decimal half cent in 1970, 5 years into the second decimal release. Over 45 million coins were minted in that year. In the years following, 1971 to 79, only 137,850 half cents were minted in total. Then the humble half cent was finally phased out in 1980, but it still appeared in proof sets until 1983. Now for these 8, they're all 1970. Let's make it a generous R1 for the lot. Okay, so we also have a few 5-cent coins, 47 in total. I counted them beforehand, with the well-known blue crane as the motif. Now these coins is extremely common and they're usually worth only face value. For a really nice one, maybe a little bit more. So let's give it R2.50 in total. Now the 1989 5-cent is a difficult find though, and they usually go for R80 to R120 if you can find them. But sadly, I've gone through them. There's not an 89 over here. Okay, so next we've got some 10 cents and some 20 cent pieces. There's 13 10 cents and 16 20 cent pieces of the same series. But unfortunately no key dates here. So just worth face value. Oh, the 20 cent piece, that brings back memories. I wonder how many arcade games that these 20 cent pieces see. As a kid, that was one of my favorite pastimes, to my parents' great dismay. Okay, then lastly, we've got a bag containing, wow, that's heavy, 13 R1 coins, the big ones. Now these unfortunately are all nickel. I was hoping there would be a silver one in between, but they're all nickel, and so possibly R2 each. Some of them are quite worn. There's 2 of them I saw that's in a rather good condition, and these will typically go for slightly more, maybe R10 or R5 for each of those. There's also 3 50-cent pieces in here, and they're pretty well worn. So that's only face value. So for the total for these, I would say R33.50 maybe. Now there is some modern currency in here as well. The commemorative 10 years of freedom R2 coin deserves a special mention. This one is in a rather good condition, so I'd say around R20 for it. The cricket 50-cent pieces, or this specific one, is in uncirculated condition, so R20 for that. And the rest, just really face value. I did find this really nicely toned 1991 2-cent coin though. 133 million were minted in this year. But I'll gladly pay R10 for this specific coin simply because of its toning. Let me conserve it a bit using the proper technique. Wow, a really nice looking coin. Now someone else may not be willing to pay 10 rand like I do. So remember, it's all market related and you have to keep that in mind. Okay, so next we have quite a few international coins. So let's quickly go through them. Okay, so to begin with, we've got these 3 half pennies and 1 full penny from the United Kingdom. These are very worn. They're worn almost completely smooth. They date from the late 1800s to the early 1900s. And in this condition, I don't think you'll get more than 5 rand each. Queen Victoria is here on the back. But in a better condition, if you can get it in that condition, obviously it's worth quite a bit more, especially if it's graded. But in this raw, poor condition, I really think these would grade as poor. Maybe 5 rand if you're extremely lucky. Okay, then next we've got this 1939 farthing. I just love this little bird on this coin. It's really, I just love it. Now these coins are extremely common and not worth much. I think about 5 rand in this condition, but still a very humble little copper coin. The farthings, I always have a soft spot for them. I still think ours are prettier though. Then we've got 10 pence and 3 5-pence coins. These are actually quite interesting. Now, as you can see, especially for the 5 pence here, that's a 5 pence, but that's also a 5 pence. So what's going on here in terms of the size? Now, when decimalization occurs in the UK, in other words, moving from your pennies and shillings to pence and your pounds, they started off with the larger coins to coincide with the same size as the 6 pence, and later on it was then reduced to the 5 cent, or the 5p that you see over here. That's still in circulation. I also think that these coins are pretty much worth face value, so it's that's what it is. And then lastly, we've got some copper coins. So we've got a 2 pence coin and 3 1 pences. These are also still in circulation, so again face value, but it's interesting to find them in a collection like this. So not quite sure how they landed there, but here they are. Okay, so here we have some Mauritius currency ranging from the 5 cent, which is the smallest denomination, to a 20 rupees coin. Now these are currently in circulation and therefore only worth face value. Now many people collect currency from the places that they visit, and I assume that may have happened here as well. That's of course also a way to collect. Collect the currencies from places that you visit, especially of course if you do travel a lot. Okay, so here we have a Rhodesian 1 penny coin with the iconic hole in the center. Now the purpose of the hole in this case was probably ornamental, but in different parts of the world the hole allowed coins to be carried around the neck or combined in groups of say 10 or 12 to form super units. For example, 12 of them in a string would form a shilling. Now, I'm not entirely sure of the value here, but probably around 20 rand in this condition. Okay, some more modern Zimbabwean coins, which are really only worth face value, which is really not a lot since the Zim dollar is rather weak, but some interesting devices on the coins though. Then finally we have a 5-ore coin from Sweden and 25 centimes from France. Here is a 1 cent coin from the Netherlands, a 5 tambala coin from Malawi, and then lastly a quarter from the United States in rather good condition. So yeah, about 30 rand from the lot. Now, the last bag contained a few very interesting tokens, which of course many people collect as well. One is a Gold Reef City memento token, which is minted in pure aluminium, so it's very light. There's also 3 amusement park tokens, and then finally this very interesting hut tax token, which I just had to go read up on. Now, these were issued by the British during the colonial period. A local had to pay this so-called hut tax so they can erect structures on their land. Now, this tax could be paid in terms of money, labor, or produce. Now, as unfair as this sounds, or is really, it did start trade and cooperation within the communities. So the hut tax could be saved up, and then each household could then pay it. So once that got paid, you were then issued this token, which could be affixed to your hut using the hole. Now, it's tricky to assign a value to all of these, but I think around 50 Rand for the lot is fair. So that brings us to the grand total of 837 Rand for this very interesting collection. Not bad at all. However, I find the rich stories and history behind this far more valuable than the mere monetary value. Don't you? Let me know in the comments what you think. Also, if you think I was inaccurate in my estimation, I would love to hear your comments as well. Let me know what you think. Oh yes, and before I forget, guys, if you reside within South Africa and you've got a large number of coins that you'd like to get rid of, and perhaps you're unable to do so through Facebook, or perhaps you are reluctant to do so, here are some contact details of dealers that I've either dealt with in the past or that I know through reputation. That might be the safer route. Anyway, I hope that helps. So, yes, that's it from this rather long video. Keep well and happy collecting.